Hi! TGIF, everybody. I am feeling really soft and really excited at the same time. I've been kind of like ruminating with this one for a while. It's been a kind of crazy couple of days. And I'm sure that you guys have probably been feeling it too. The past 2 weeks have been a doozy, not in a bad way, not in a good way, just kind of interesting. Maybe challenging for some of you and maybe confusing. I know that I've definitely been in that space too throughout the past couple of weeks and have been processing a ton in the past 2 days, but especially today. And someone asked me the other day, actually Adam asked me the other day, like, what do I mean when I say I've been processing? And I thought that was actually a really great question because a lot of people don't know what that means and I just kind of assume. So when I say processing, I mean intentionally getting like really curious about what's really happening. You know, it's looking past the circumstance, looking past even the situation or the people, and getting really curious about what's going on for you. And it takes ownership. It takes ownership of understanding what that really is for you. You know, outside of Mulligan's here with me too. Outside of the circumstance, outside of blame of other people, outside of what we think is really the issue, like even just small things like, oh, it's just the weather making me feel really blue. You know, it's never really the thing. Like, it's never about what it's about, and it's never about anybody else. So what is it? Processing is going in to look at what is it? What is it for you? What is it triggering? What is it touching? What is it kind of bringing up for you to see? Because it's super intentional. So I call it treasure hunting. Basically, what I call processing is treasure hunting. It's going looking for the deeper layers of what's actually happening for you and understanding it so that we can kind of work with it. It's not to get rid of it. It's not to make it bad. It's to work with it. So if you've been having a really tough couple of weeks, I feel you. I know that you're not the only one. I've been working with people around this for the past 2 weeks a ton. And a lot of times in these moments, we just need to have a little compassion for ourselves, a little softness, and a lot of curiosity. A lot of curiosity. So what I noticed for people around the past 2 weeks is that it's bringing up for a lot of people the core wound. That core, really deep, ripples through everything wound. And you may not know what that is, and that's totally okay. You may not even know what that means, and that's also okay. And it's not really kind of like a bing, bang, boom formula. This is how you figure out what your core wound is. But a place to go looking is like when you feel triggered, what does it feel like for you? What's the feeling that comes up in that trigger? And then looking at the pattern, looking at the ways that that consistently shows up for you. So for me, because this is going to be kind of a personal one, because I want to kind of hone it into reality. Like a lot of times we talk about these things, processing and what's going on in the universe and energy and astrology, which I love all of that. But it sometimes makes it hard to understand how it might actually be happening for you in your life. So that's kind of why I ground it in by making it super personal. So what I noticed like crazy. And when I'm in processing mode, it feels like my brain is like a computer processor. It feels like I wish more than anything that I could literally have some kind of little device in my brain that would audio record every thought I have, because I can never write it down. Like it's just like a constant stream of information and awareness and puzzle pieces coming together and dots being connected. And like deeper understandings, and I always am like, oh God, how do I how do I take all this right now and put it somewhere, and every time I try and write it down, it just kind of disappears. But while I'm in that space is when I kind of get the most traction on what's going on. So what I noticed for myself was my core wound, which is that I'm not seen. And I found it, I think probably like 6 years ago with another coach, and realized all the ways that that shows up in my life and has always shown up in my life. So like when I was a kid, I used to pout a lot. I used to kind of go hide in a corner and pout. And I never really had any, like, I was never part of a group. I was never like, I was usually more friends with everybody, but I see that from my shadow self, from the wound part of that, it was because I never felt seen in a group. I always felt like, not invisible, but I felt like the magical part of me, they just didn't see or didn't understand. Like, basically, if I want to be super blunt, from my survivor self slash shadow self, don't you see how special I am? And I've been working with it for years, so it shows up really differently now than it did then, and has a lot less of a voice than it did when I was younger. But the new way that it's showing up right now for me is actually in relationship. And I think that that's really intentional. I think it's intentional in that it's coming up this way because relationship is the thing that I still have little power leaks around. So I noticed a theme that I have. And this is my shadow self. I'm going to be super clear. Like, and I know that, we can't have one without the other. We can't have light without dark. We all have a shadow self, and it's not bad. It's not the thing you're trying to fix or get rid of. It's just the thing that needs more love. It's the thing that needs more love. So the part that needs more love for me, the part that my shadow self shows up in around not being seen right now, this particular version of it, is a pattern that I have with men and partners in, this is not super fun to admit even to myself, not to mention all of you, but it's the part of me that sometimes feels superior in relationship and can show up as like the expert or the fixer, or I've done all this work and I'm like more mentally, spiritually, and physically evolved. And in that, I sometimes make my partners feel like they're not enough. And I hate that. I hate that. I never want to make another human feel like they're not enough, ever. And that's the reason why I show up to healing this part of my shadow around this core wound of not feeling seen. And I do that because it's like a flip of the same wound. Like, if I'm really seen, maybe they'll leave, or maybe they won't love me, or like, you just don't understand because you don't see how powerful I am. You don't see how magical I am, and you can't meet me in that. It's a self-protection subconscious thing that shows up that keeps me from allowing a man to fully love me. Because our beliefs create our reality, always, right? And our beliefs get formed from experience. They don't pop out of nowhere. But this quote came up this week on Instagram, and it's just so good, and it so perfectly kind of mirrors back all of this, that our wounds may not have been our fault, but it is our responsibility to heal them. So our beliefs, all the hurt from the wounds that have shown up in our life, and the hurt that creates the story and the belief, the original wound was not our fault, but it is our responsibility to rewrite those stories. It is our responsibility to heal and to unearth them so that they don't have as much power. And that is the consistent theme that keeps showing up right now. So looking at my not seen, looking at some of the funny ways that my shadow self might be showing up in that, the superior, the a man, there's no man on my level that can really love me, or and then all the funny things that I do around that, which is basically kind of keep distance, which is not the thing that I want. And I never want to make someone feel like they're not enough. So I actually have to own that, which is the huge piece in all of this. It's a big piece about processing, and it's also the thing that the energy is calling to us to do right now, to own our wound, to own the ways that our shadow self shows up from that wound, to own our stories that are playing out most of the time unconsciously. So you have to go digging for them so that they don't melt all over our relationships, all over the people that we love, and also so that they don't keep stopping us from the thing that we really want. Deep love, a crazy, awesome, powerful, expansive practice, like seeing that vision and actually going for it, going traveling if that's the thing that you really, really want, looking at all the ways that the belief stops us from getting what we want. And in particular, looking at the way that your shadow is showing up in that, because that's the part that's holding on. And then the other piece of it too is acknowledging all the growth that you've had that's gotten you here. Acknowledging that it's not looking at like, okay, this is the issue, this is the belief, I've got to cut that out and I'm never going to think that again, which is what we do all the time. We just want to fix it. But it's not about like cutting it out of who you are. It's a part of your story. But now it's about refocusing the balance so that the story isn't the one leading the charge all the time. You get to choose how you recreate that story now. So, for instance, instead of the story, which is my survivor self, I'm going to make that really clear. This is not how my rational, healthy brain thinks all the time. But my shadow self and my survivor self that says, I'm too powerful for a man, or there's no man at my frequency, or the superior. Blech, I hate saying that, but that's why I know I have to say it. Because I'm being asked to own it. I am being asked to own the ways in which my shadow shows up and gets in the way of the things that I want. And that's what we're all being asked. And it's super powerful. The energy right now is super, super powerful. So lean in. You've got all this new growth, new understanding. Whether you understand fully what it is for you or not, it's there. And now it's time for us to take it and move forward, to leave that old wound, that old story behind a little bit and walk forward into the energy that is calling you, because I know you can feel it. I can't really do that until we release the power that the wound has. And babe, I get it. Your wounds are real. They happened. And you feel them. But they happened. They're in the past. They probably taught you a whole bunch. And now it's time for them to live in you differently. That's I love putting it that way, because it's not about trying to get rid of it. It's about trying to let it live in you differently. Because it is a part of who you are. Our shadow and our light is always there. Survivor self and healthy self. Ego and higher self, depending on how you want to look at it. But it's all the same thing. So our most full, most embodied, most whole self is embracing both with compassion. Embracing your shadow with compassion. And ownership, strangely, is very compassionate. It's actually not about blame. It's about looking at the parts that we find shameful, the parts that we don't even want to admit to ourselves, with a lens of compassion and curiosity. looking at the stuff that we judge, that we make wrong, that we honestly don't even really see because we don't want to look at it. And that's the other really cool thing about choosing to process, is it's intentionally looking for what we're not seeing. And a lot of the time, especially for those of us who have been doing the work a lot, it's like, oh no, I already did that. Like, oh no, I don't do that anymore. I fixed that, or I healed that, or, like, oh, that's not me. I don't do that. And every time we do that, which it may be true in some way, but when we do that, it doesn't allow us to see the ways that we are showing up in it. So when I go treasure hunting, when I go processing, I look for the ways that I actually am doing it. Even if my survivor self or my ego might be like, oh no, I already did that. I don't do that. It denies me, by doing that, it denies us of the gift that's still there waiting for us, because there's so many layers to each thing. So you may have worked on one level of something, but the next level is just waiting for you to go find it. And if we say, oh no, I already did that, then we miss it. So go searching for the ways that don't feel good, the stuff that we don't really want to look at, that we don't want to admit to ourselves, that feel probably shameful, and look at the ways that that's still showing up for you. Because the freedom is on the other side of that story. And we're really kind of like, the energy right now is actually cutting these cords, these attachments to these old stories that we have about who we are or what we're not, or what we're afraid of. And saying, honey, that's just not true anymore. It's just not. It's time to let it go and let it live in you differently. Oh, it's been a really, really big couple of weeks. Oh, I feel for you guys, because I know that I'm not the only one. I really do. I feel for you. And just know that you're not alone. Really, truly, I can say that you are not alone. I work with people all day long on the challenges that we have, and the consistencies that I see just show me that we're walking through this life together. That despite how isolating our challenges may feel, they are intentional and a gift, and we're not alone. And that was the other part that also came through around the energy this week and last week, was support. Really intentionally, like looking at the pain, looking at the wound, being with what is ours, owning it, choosing to give it less power, filling up all of the little power leaks inside of us right now, focusing our energy on what we were really committed to right now, what's in alignment with the you that you are right now. Not the you that you were 10 years ago or when that wound happened, but the you that you are right now. Focusing your energy to that and getting support. Getting support, asking for it, whether it's from a professional or a friend or a loved one. But honestly, what's really being asked of us is actually to ask for support from something bigger than us. I don't care what that is for you. It doesn't matter whether it's God, source, spirit, angels, fairies, your higher self, energy, spirit, whatever that is. Ask for help. Ask for support, because it is so waiting to come in and plug up all those holes, all those power leaks. It's so ready to love and support you. It's there all the time, loving and supporting you. We just don't always believe it, which is part of the disempowering belief that is it being asked to go. Because however we relate to love stems from that original source of how we relate to love from our higher power, whatever that may be. So that's a lot of information. You can tell my brain has been like, brrr. for 2 days straight. I took some really conscious time to be with this, which is an offering for you also. Give yourself the gift of a little bit of time and space to be with what this means for you. It is a giant gift that's waiting for us to decode. And I promise you that, like, getting into it and being with it, although it may not be comfortable, and Molly says this too, it's not always comfortable, but it is in service of freedom. Freedom! Because the only thing that gets in our way of our freedom is ourselves. Because for me, and this brilliantly came to me in a moment on the beach in Costa Rica when I was by myself, at my first solo trip, that freedom is true freedom, has nothing to do with people or circumstances or where we're at. It is freedom from our own stuff. Our beliefs create our entire reality, our stories, which is why it's so dang powerful to look at them and question them and reframe them. It plugs up the power leaks. And it also allows us to live more in alignment with where we are right now, instead of playing out old stories that don't actually fit anymore. It's like a dress that doesn't fit anymore. Okay. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Doing the work is not always easy, and it pushes all the buttons and sometimes feels really hard. But you're doing it. You're showing up to life. Right now, you are 100% successful because you're alive. So great job. Know that you're not alone and know that you are loved. So if you have questions, reach out. There's a lot of info in here right now. So hopefully you guys have an awesome weekend. And I'm going to put in the comments Molly McCord's podcast because it is just so good. And I'm wishing you guys so much love.